This video is brought to you by Aura, more on them later. I loved watching animated shows growing up, and I was fortunate enough to experience a huge variety of quality television. As I grew older, I never realized how many of the same voice actors played a huge part in bringing these iconic characters to life. A fun drawing challenge for this video would be to mash up characters from different shows that have the same voice actor. I also wanted to add one more caveat that I would need to end the video with the same show that I'll start with. That way it can sort of be like a circle.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
I think this video is going to be a fun one, but before we get started, let's have a word from this video's sponsor. A few months ago, National Public Data announced that they had suffered a major breach which compromised over 2.9 billion records used for background checks, including personal information such as full names, addresses, dates of birth, phone numbers, and most importantly, social security numbers. Personal information security is such an important topic in this day and age, and we're all more vulnerable than ever in today's digital landscape. From having too much information online to receiving spam calls and texts daily, all of this can get extremely overwhelming to deal with. Thankfully, I feel secure because of today's sponsor, Aura. Aura not only monitors your personal data, including your social security number, across billions of data points like the dark web and public court records to alert you about potential identity theft, but they also provide up to $5 million in identity theft insurance in case the worst happens. Plus, Aura offers a variety of other features to keep you safe online, including real-time alerts for data breaches, a VPN for secure browsing, data broker opt-out to stop companies from selling your personal information, a password manager to help you create and store strong passwords, and much more. I don't feel comfortable leaving myself vulnerable to data breaches, and if you don't want to either, click the link in my description or you can go to aura.com/ChunnyK to try 2 weeks for free. That will allow Aura to help you find out if any of your personal data is exposed. The first show I'm going to be choosing for this video has to be none other than Avatar: The Last Airbender. This series has been pretty prevalent in my channel throughout the past year, so it only felt right to start with this masterpiece. The other show we'll be looking at is Jake Long, American Dragon, and you probably guessed it by now, we'll be looking at Prince Zuko and Jake Long, voiced by Dante Basco. Avatar: The Last Airbender has so many amazing characters to choose from, but ultimately I felt like I had to choose Prince Zuko. Zuko is one of my favorite characters from the show, and he was one of the few that taught my young self what good character development really looked like. Dante Basco does a great job portraying this troubled teen, and he does an equally great job portraying our other character. He's hot, he's cold like the frozen sun, he's Jake Long, the American Dragon. I knew immediately after choosing these two characters that I wanted to do two separate drawings, one in human form and one in dragon form. I kept the pose pretty light and easy and pretty much had Zuck Long here in an arms crossed motion, while having his dragon form kind of make an S shape behind him. I also used Avatar Roku's dragon as a reference as I attempted to combine features from both shows into this drawing. But this rough sketch came out so much quicker than I had anticipated, so I moved on to the inking right away. This was progressing at a pretty nice rate and I was pretty happy with how this was all turning out. However, there came a point while inking our dragon form here where I felt like his design was a bit too smooth and undetailed. So this is where I looked to add on to his design just so there was a bit more to work with. It got to the point where I lost track with what I was going for, and ended up making him look way too spiky and hairy, but luckily I caught myself before I got way too far with it. One spiky fur removal later and I was able to find a happier middle ground with some more subtle scales. These little lines, although not much, did a much better job at portraying his dragonness, and I knew now that it was time to move on to the coloring process. I stayed loyal to the color scheme of the original shows, and since Jake and Zuko both rocked that red, it didn't really feel that out of place. These characters, although wildly different in style and personality, have quite a good amount of similarities. Voice actor notwithstanding, both characters have a wise older mentor figure who's also a dragon, although one is more figurative than literal, and let's not even mention the fire breathing that both can do. But now that the coloring was pretty much completed, it was time to move on to the next step in our drawing evolution, and that would be the shading. Using the multiply layer, the flat marker brush, and the blend tool, I was able to get a nice color and texture for shading both of these characters. I'm still figuring out where to place shadows in regards to the lighting, and I'm sure there are areas where the shading might be out of place, but this process has slowly been turning into one of my favorites. And near the end I added a little tail as well, along with giving our dragon drawing Zuko's scar, just to keep him consistent with a human form. And here we have Dante Bosco's two iconic characters, Jake Long, the American Dragon, and heir to the throne, Prince Zuko. I really like how these two designs turned out, although I have to say I didn't realize how much of a belly I gave our dragon friend here. He's definitely had one too many cups of tea. If you're enjoying how this drawing turned out, and if you're enjoying the video so far, please leave a like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. We have to choose another character from American Dragon Jake Long before moving on to another show. After looking at the characters, I ultimately decided on choosing Jake's love interest slash enemy, Rose, or Huntsgirl, portrayed by Mae Whitman. Mae Whitman was in quite a lot of shows, so it was definitely tough to pick a character out, choice overload and whatnot. But after looking for a while, I decided it might be best to try out April O'Neil from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles show she did a while back. While these two characters are pretty simple, I didn't know how I was going to tackle it. I figured it might be best to do what I did in the previous attempt and draw two separate versions again. Although this time around there won't be a dragon form to add on. And as you can see, I drew Rose as April and vice versa. I mentioned before that both drawings are pretty simple, which is a good thing because the rough sketch took almost no time at all, but it ended up being a bad thing as well because it was really hard to distinguish who these characters were meant to be. I didn't know how to really tackle this conundrum, so in the meantime, I thought it might be somewhat of a solution if I gave April the 4 different weapons that the turtles used. That meant adding in Leonardo's katana, Donatello's staff, Michelangelo's nunchucks, and Raphael's sais. Once the design was finalized and their iconic weapons were added, the remaining portion went by without a hitch. I made sure to stick tightly to the color schemes of the show because this was the only other recognizable aspects of these characters. And once they were completed, I knew that I would go back and add some depth by adding some shading. The process was pretty identical with the Jake and Zuko attempt from the previous try, and it definitely helped complete the overall look. The final remaining pieces were to add in their eye color and a little bit of highlights, and I was finally done. Although they ended up looking a bit more generic than I had initially anticipated, I was okay with the end result. April O'Neil was a bit tough because in this outfit it was really hard to distinguish her character, with the face mask and everything. But I ended up just giving her the weapons to kind of, make her out. And now that we went from Avatar: The Last Airbender to American Dragon Jake Long to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, it's time to choose our next two characters and next show. Obviously, it would make sense to choose one of the turtles as our next option, and Michelangelo just so happens to be one of my favorites, so I knew he would be my next choice easily. Greg Cipes is a voice actor, and I think I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but yeah, his voice has such a unique quality that fits that goofy and lovable Michelangelo. But he also voices another goofy, lovable character in another show with the word teen in the title, and that's Beast Boy from Teen Titans. I'm going to be going with a non-Go version. Michelangelo from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Beast Boy from Teen Titans Stay are our next two candidates, and I had a feeling that this might be a tough one for sure. At the very least, they're both green, so at least they got that going for them. The main struggle I encountered with these two is the fact that one is a giant turtle. But at the bare minimum, I knew that I was going to add Beast Boy's hair and his sharp teeth to Michelangelo. But besides those two features, I didn't really know where else to take the character. I thought maybe I'll try to add Beast Boy's outfit, but I'm instead try to make it baggy and ripped up since Michelangelo is so much bigger than Beast Boy. That decision ended up being a big mistake, and yeah, you'll see. I'll show you what it ended up looking like. I'll fast forward to the end of this attempt so you can see how, cursed he ended up looking. After being horrified with my creation, I decided maybe the shirt isn't it. I also felt like I made him way too bulky for his own good, so I put him on a Peloton to lose the extra pounds. I added some minor cracks to his frontal shell since he's a party dude and he's pretty reckless. And then I went on to finish up the inking after adding Beast Boy's belts, shoes, and gloves. The coloring was a bit easier this time around, and I have to say this looks a lot better. Still cursed, but better. Looking back at it now, I think I probably should have tried to make Beast Boy's suit cling to Michelangelo's skin instead of going all baggy like, but it's too late for that now. But now we just have some minor shading left to do for Michelangelo, and here we have it. Greg Cipes, Michelangelo, and Beast Boy. I do regret not giving him Beast Boy's outfit, maybe even just giving him pants, because it still just feels mainly like Michelangelo. That being said, it does look a lot better than the previous attempt, so I can't be too mad at it. We're nearing the ends, and I knew that I wanted to stick with another member of the Teen Titans for this next section. After looking at the remaining characters, I chose Raven, voiced by TV legend Tara Strong. Tara Strong is yet another voice actor who's been in countless productions. After looking at her filmography, I ultimately decided to go with a one Mr. Benjamin Tennyson, which I didn't know Tara Strong voice until recently, and that kind of just blew my mind. Instead of drawing just one iteration, I really wanted to try drawing both possible versions of these two characters, so that's what ended up happening. I drew Raven as Ben in his simple striped shirt with that giant Omnitrix watch that I wanted so badly as a kid. I didn't have an exact pose in mind, but I decided to continue onward till I got to Ben's portion. Drawing Ben in Raven style was a bit tough at first because there wasn't much going on with the design, but I knew that I had to wait till the coloring section to really get his drawing to pop. Before moving on to the inking, I finally figured out Ben's and Raven's poses, and although they're quite simple, I feel like they captured each other's characters pretty well. Now that the poses were pretty much done and I was happy with how they turned out, it was time to move on to the inking. I kept the line work pretty light and breezy, I didn't really want to go too heavy with it. That being said, the inking was pretty easy as I was mainly just cleaning up the rough sketch. Raven's grey skin soon filled the page and her face as I brought this black and grey image to color. Well, color. Ben's scheme is a bit drab, but overall it fits Raven's character. Ben also didn't have much going on either. There were only two main colors, and since they were primarily dark, it was a bit hard to distinguish between my line work. I was feeling a bit discouraged till I utilized more of the purple as highlights and the drawing was finally starting to actually pop. I've never really colored like this before and ended up being a lot of fun, so I'm looking forward to trying out more styles like this. And here we have it, Tara Strong's two iconic characters, Raven and Ben 10. I do have a bit of a regret treating Raven's drawing as sort of an afterthought since she turned out to be a bit more dull than I wanted her to. I really do like how Ben turned out however, so this piece is a bit of a tough one personally. And finally, it was time to move on to our last two characters. To recap, we went from Avatar: The Last Airbender, American Dragon Jake Long, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Ben 10, and now we'll be going back to Avatar: The Last Airbender. We'll be transitioning onward to D. Bradley Baker, who voices, and I say that word with quotes, one of the aliens from Ben's Omnitrix, Wild Mutt. We'll be combining him with none other than Momo, who D. Bradley Baker also voices. Again, I say voices with quotations since neither of these two characters actually really speak. Almost never speaks.
Yeah, leave the kid alone.
I was really excited for this one because these are two characters who are very interestingly designed, and it was going to be fun to pick and choose features from both to settle into one drawing. As you can see, I gave Momo Wild Mutt's mouth as he's soaring through the sky. Other notable features I added would be the lack of eyes, the weird line on Wild Mutt's chest, his Omnitrix logo on the shoulder, and the weird arms and legs. Feeling good about what I drew, I moved on to the coloring scheme, and I didn't know which color scheme to actually choose. I decided on Momo's colors since he actually had some variety instead of being straight up just one color. After that was done, I moved on to the shading, and honestly this took not that much time, so before I knew it, I was done. And here we have Momo and Wild Mutt's love child on display. This was a fun drawing challenge that I've done, and I really hope you enjoyed seeing the progress of each one. I did wish I could make the video a bit longer, but I am getting over the flu, so I couldn't really talk that much without my throat hurting. But yeah, Jake and Zuko's iteration is probably my favorite one, but I'm curious to see what others thought. Please let me know down below which two characters were your favorites. Please leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more. And yeah, that's pretty much all there is to this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.